My name is Katina Michael. I'm the program chair of the new Masters of Science in Public Interest Tech. And this interview is being recorded for PIT 502, Co-Designing the Future. And we've got with us Gisele Waters. Good morning, Gisele.
Good morning, Katina.
How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. How about you?
Oh, it's been a big week this week. We've had several interviews for PIT 502, and I've learned so much. And every person I've interviewed has been a female. And
Wow.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. We had Nicole
Was that
Stevenson.
purposeful?
No, but it seems like I'm navigating to the smart people. So
That's good.
Gisele, what do you do, Gisele?
So currently, probably my primary now is Director of Design Research for a firm that helps navigate healthcare innovation through setting up new service treatment lines for different varieties of patients. That's probably my primary. And then also some standards work, um, Texas licensed broker of real estate,
That's
uh,
incredible.
professor education, teaching a few select doc students through their dissertations. Founder of Engineering Hearts is sort of a conceptual framework, trying to figure out how to make people more ethical, specifically engineers,
Mhm.
and lots of other little bits and bobs.
I must introduce you to a wonderful lady by the name of Jumana Bugazela,
Okay.
who is from Pivot for Humanity. She was one of our first interviewees in this program. And she too is trying to professionalize ethics, and you and her have a lot in common.
Ah, okay. I'm excited. Yes. I think that there's a kindred spirits in there, and they're few and far between, but it's lovely when you meet them like yourself. So I'm very honored to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, and me too. The honor, I think, is all ours, Gisele. I have followed your work over the last, I think it's been about 3 years through the P7000 standards.
Right.
Um, you are someone with attention to detail. We've been very gifted. I think you're our secretary. I don't know what the terminology is for the IEEE P2089 standard, age
Yeah.
appropriate digital services. But I'm just thinking, I actually don't know anyone personally that has that much on their plate.
Oh, please. There's so
I
many.
don't. I, I don't. I
Did you look in
don't.
the mirror today? That's a
Mm,
that's her. It's a biggie.
I think the level of conduct, let's look at the design work. This is extremely pertinent to 502. We got chatting about where design is going
Right.
a month ago now. And I was just, it was your example. And I have to say, I waited in response. You were on a call with a client and you were going to see that call out. I
Ah,
think it was a
yes.
10 minutes extra, but it was a
Yes.
fine example to me because I was late for an interview for this class with Mark Hurst. I mistimed and I thought the call was going to be 3 a.m., but it was actually 2, and I got up at 2:17. By the time I came downstairs, and Mark waited.
Yeah.
So this is the human side of our profession that I think if we can continue to support people just like this, it's actually a work ethic, right?
It is.
Um,
Absolutely. It is.
and you display that all the time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. No, I mean, a design research at its foundation, right, is inherently about meeting the needs of people where they are. And I mean, just because of this past year and so much going on, I think that empathy is probably a work requirement now. And it should be explicitly stated so in a way that there's just there's no way to consider yourself you can't go on in the robotic automaton manner in which if you're wanting to design services that meet the needs of people where they are, you must attend to those needs and preferences and happenings that are going on in their lives. And so someone's going to talk to you about their story for an extra 10 minutes, then I think listening is just a priceless, valueless a gift. It's an opportunity. Yeah.
very much. And we got into the nitty gritty of participatory design research and co-design research. Tell us where you see that field as a whole. I know you do the micro stuff. You're actually on the phone collecting
Yeah,
and I don't even say collecting because I don't ever see you collecting anything. You're having conversations, right?
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm serving, providing a
Yes.
service, running a program with patients, and at the same time, they are participating in a semblance of research because it's really just we are providing the service treatment line. But what's interesting about this is I think the majority of design research in the private sector before this particular position is really, it talks a lot about empathy, and it'll even explicitly say we would like to conceptually map out our empathy towards the customer. And I always found it a bit how shall we say, disgenuine or insincere in that it's never, that was never taken to the stakeholder. So if you're going to provide that empathy or the compassion towards the customer in any service product system or whatever, it's the stakeholder that sets the terms. And so in my research, I'm in this lovely in between in which we are trying to provide something never provided to a patient before, and at the same time talking to them about what they think about it. That's sort of a midway place. But participatory action research oriented approaches, I think, are still nascent, are still not even conceived in most private sector design research projects. At least I don't know of many of them. USAA, for example, the insurance provider and provider of many other things, have an incredibly deep design research company department. I mean, I think it's 100 plus strong.
Wow.
And I was actually very interested in and interviewed and didn't get the final
Mhm.
position. But what was fascinating about learning about their design approach in how they provide services, I was fascinated by the breadth and the depth of it. But it still wasn't as
Mm.
human as I thought it could be, right?
Mm.
And participatory and action research starts with those foundations. So I think both public-private and public-private partnerships have universes to go to where we really do what is meant in those types of research. I think globally we're not even getting there. We're not getting close. Are there archipelagos? Are there islands of success? I'm sure you probably work on many of them. And even so, I'm working in partially in one. But in terms of the bulk, the mass, no, I don't think so. Not yet.
That's a huge statement. And coming from someone who's trained in the domain and also works in the domain and has a lot of experience, what has to change to get to that point?
Ooh, people have to care.
Oh, that's what we've been talking about the whole semester.
Yeah. I They just have to start caring. I don't, there's this automated sense of the bottom line, the efficiency factor, the cost effectiveness, the market, the market's invisible hand, the incentives, the promotions, all of that has been status quo. And I think if anything that COVID has taught us is um, both the market and public institutions are challenged with the question: did they, both, public and private, do they and did they care enough? And do people have the nets and the safety nets and the care that is needed? And I mean, we have our answers, right? There's too many people suffering right now. So we have to begin with the question, what do we care about? Where are our values? What is important? Um, in what context does our bottom line make a difference? Do we care about how it makes a difference? Who it impacts? Who decides who it impacts? Who's at risk when we decide to move forward with any project? But I think that's the only way to begin. And that question doesn't get asked. I mean, it just doesn't. Often, it does not.
We were talking with Jemana and also Mark Hurst about the concept of move fast and break things, and that
Yeah.
has been somewhat responsible for this lack of care, that the projects that require time and deliberation and funding.
Big time.
Yeah, so it's like we want to make money, but we're not going to invest in the process of
Right.
engagement and empowerment.
Yeah.
Because when we look at the literature, as you know, the literature starts off with, well, you can start off there, but really, and this is engagement and perhaps even alignment, whatever you want to call that beginning part and building. But we want to get there and empower, bring the customer, bring the citizen along the journey as co-designers.
Yeah.
But is it fluff? Like we've called it co-designing the future, and we talk about what co-designing is in the traditional sense and in the definitional sense. Is it smokescreen? Like if you're saying to me, we're not even doing participatory action research properly, do we have even a hope of co-design and empowerment of community groups? Or is it just, it's an idealistic utopia, which we're going to take a long time to get to, if ever?
We're going to take a long time to get there. I'm a bit of a cynic in this, and I think that I'm a bit jaded perhaps, but humans are not yet. There was a movie that said it was about AI. What the heck was it? That was fantastic. Oh, it was just a goofy military movie called Outside the Line or something. Anyway, this massively modern AI soldier. The idea was that the human is saying, "Oh, did you learn how to cuss like that from your program?" And he said, "No, I learned it by being in front of a-holes like you." So that's a responsive. But then he said something else. He goes, "So how do you learn your emotions?" I said, "Because obviously because of the program." But I ask you, you think? He said, I'm super precise about my emotions. It's something like that. It was like, I'm hyper fed emotions. I have too many emotions. My thought of you humans is that you have too little. And I thought to myself after that, I thought, wow, what a different theory, what a different approach. You could be programmed to have a lot of emotion and incredible empathy and be hyper vigilant and hyper sensitive and hyper empathic, right? But humans are not. And so it goes back to your question. I think that there's just with participatory research and circling back to co-design, we're going to have folks that do it right and do it incredibly. But at scale, if you're asking me, is this going to happen at scale globally? I won't be alive to see it. That's my personal thought. It's going to take generations. We're messed up as humans. I think we have a long way to go to understand our emotions, to understand our human connections to each other, to understand what matters, to understand how to care for big capital O, the other.
Yes. I was having a discussion with someone about this yesterday afternoon, actually, at around 2:00. And I think a lot of people, whether they're designers or not, although I believe all humans are designers to some extent.
Yes, absolutely.
Design didn't happen, because we called an area design thinking in the 80s or 90s.
Case in point, I'm being a mother.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, but wow, let's talk about designing.
Yeah, talk about that. Yes. Is there a numbness? I mean, I held a design studio yesterday. I was very fortunate to be the host of that, and it was all organized by others who invited me to be the host. And I think what I was pointing to with a lot of entrepreneurs in that design studio was what you began with today, which actually shocked me. You were talking about this automaton style way of life. You know, I
Yeah.
didn't expect to hear that today in this conversation, but are we all numbified at the moment? We can't feel, or there's no time to feel. We're not
Yeah.
giving ourselves that bandwidth, because these things here that don't allow us, you know,
Yeah.
you know, there's this clash with the
Excuse me,
vision.
what?
Where's mine? I
Yeah.
can't. I'm going to
Yeah.
make believe. Perfume. What?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think all of the above, really. I don't know, our mode of survival, how humans survive and what they do, you know, in order to just be okay with themselves, with their work, with their family. We're all struggling to just find a place to be okay. And you know, none of the socio-technical pieces of equipment help to lend a hand. On the contrary, to help lend a hand on being more caring. As you know, there's whole sets of research about the distancing. You're closer, but you're also further apart because of these suckers, right?
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere in a restaurant to not see people not talking to each other anymore. And every time I see at an airport, especially young couples or a young person who's reading a book, a physical book, and not looking at their phone, I stop and compliment them every single time. Because it's a different connection, right? It's sort of, you're not feeding that cocaine brain of instance. I mean, I was guilty of it as anyone, but I'm self-aware of how is this taking away from X activity or that activity and so on and so forth. Our family's pretty good about completely ignoring our phones, but lots of families aren't. And so yeah, caring, it's tough. We are, we have been automated. Our technology has helped us become more automated, I think.
Where did your inspiration for care come from? Was it like the movie, you watched somebody else model the
I
behavior?
started as a bilingual teacher in Houston, teaching poor Latino kids who were absent the opportunity to learn. And as I got angrier when I watched this, and as I saw the cases of Latino kids put in special ed programs, not because they had learning disabilities, but because they didn't speak English and they were being mislabeled and misdiagnosed, and diagnosticians didn't understand how to even provide diagnostic services to second language learners. As I learned that educational arena and the literature, and I went to my master's, I just got angry and angrier at how this incredible public institution of education for the masses was missing the boat. And so I started caring probably in my first day of class, in my first class ever as a teacher. Yeah, I still get choked up over it because it's the injustices, right? And look, there's lots of people that don't care. I mean, walk around every day, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, injustice pisses me off,
Mm.
no matter where it is or with what population it's happening in.
Public interest tech is about social injustice, environmental injustice, and the list goes on and on. It's not
Yeah,
about the justices, it's about the injustices.
right,
You
right.
brought back memories I haven't thought about for, I don't know how long. I was in ESL, English as a second language. You know, I spoke only Greek until I went to school. My school was Tampa Primary Disadvantaged School. That's what it was called. It was actually
Oh,
labeled, and it reminds me.
seriously?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But we got all the best poets coming, you know, the best training, the best equipment, sports equipment, you know, the best excursions, because we were disadvantaged. We had to be looked after. But it
Yeah.
makes you somewhat resilient, because you actually don't.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like you look at it and you go, "What's that word disadvantage there?" Well, we don't know, but we're having fun.
Yeah.
You know, our parents love us. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you something, Giselle. When I moved to Tempe, Arizona, And the nearest school was a Title I school. So where were my kids going to go? I was sort of single parenting while my husband was here with the eldest for a short time. I had to take the kids to the nearest school, and I didn't really care what the label was because, I've been hit with labels all my life, but, so what?
Right.
So the kids went, and the first thing they said, in contrast, the eldest, at the time, the middle one, says to me, "Mum, everybody at the school has brown hair like me." And I said, "Really?" So comfort level.
Right. Right.
Next thing I see, I go to pick up the kids in the afternoon. The extremes, the diversity, but what's everyone doing in the extremities?
Right.
Hugging their kids like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like
True.
locked. So, zero wealth, but
Right.
they had
Right.
this happening. That, of course, reminded me of my parents and reminded me of the school I grew up in Australia.
Yeah.
And so these labels, and you know what I used to like about English as a second language? Oh, you're going to ESL, even though I was topping the class. You're going to ESL because it was assumed I was Greek,
Right.
of Greek parents and migrants. Was these, I just demonstrate using the perfume box again. So we used to go into class.
Uh-huh.
Used to be given the special treatment by people like you who were just beautiful, by the way. All the ESL. I've never met an ESL teacher who's been unempathic.
Oh,
Right? English is a
you
second
were
language.
lucky. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe I was. That's the first time I saw sort of electronic stuff.
Really?
Yeah, so I was
Wow.
in first class, and we'd
Uh-huh.
walk into a special room with special
Yeah.
headsets. Oh, you got to use headsets, and the computers, but they weren't really computers. But you'd put, it was like OCR stuff. You'd take
Yeah.
the tag.
Yeah.
Where are we? You take the tag and put it through, and you could
Oh, yeah.
hear the
Yeah.
word. I thought that was magic. Take me to ESL anytime. So if anything, I learned to become like a checkout person,
Yeah. We
My,
gotta have
my,
dreams. Gotta have dreams,
well,
Katina.
my PhD was about OCR. So, one of the 5 things was optical
That's
character
good.
recognition. But tell us about now, what is the field of design about? It's a big question. And you mentioned the word socio-technical, that's close to my heart and many of
Yeah.
those around me. Give us, like, we don't have much time left, but give us this like overview. What is this socio-technical thing about? What is this design thinking about?
I
How
think
do we do it?
in terms of even in AI, whether you're thinking about healthcare, whether you're thinking about education, whether you're thinking about AI innovation, the scuttlebutt that I'm sensing in the waves, in the Ethernet is sort of finally we are courting the social. We're finally aware that there's a social in socio-technical. And there are a select number of individuals that are beginning to think, technology is a human problem, not a technology problem. And so, I mean, that's huge. It's like, it's not this program, but it's, who's programming, right? It's the algorithmic bias, but it's the algorithmic bias programmers who are leading. And so that is very recent. I would say the power struggles, with Google and Timnit and so on and so forth, and now firing Mitchell. There's a struggle for power, I think.
Yes.
That's happening. There's an acknowledgement. There's a struggle for power in this, and these kinds of things have to help any body of work grow, and hopefully we grow for the better and develop and mature in better ways. So design will become more rigorous, but most importantly will be more inclusive. And so I don't think that couldn't happen without this awareness starting to happen in the acknowledgement and now the power struggles. So that's sort of, I think, where we're at.
Design wise, give us a list of methodologies we're employing in that space.
Yeah. So in response, the qualitative, right? We've been hammered to death of these hard science, mathematical, statistical, technological, technical modeling of phenomena and problem spaces. And this means by nature, if you're adding the social, that we must now look at the qualitative aspects of every problem space, of every inquiry, of the interconnectedness of humans. And so qualitative methods, I think in the next 25 years will definitely be a go-to method that was hardly even, didn't even get inside the room, let alone be considered. So, and that's it's my passion. So thank you. Finally, it feels like finally, it's not all wholesale there. It's not an everyday question yet, but I think finally people are starting to think, holy cow, what's the qualitative aspects of this issue? What's happening? Why? The how? The where does it work? When does it work? Under what temperature? I mean, does it mean does that work for that person and then not this? Those types of things must be asked, and so the qualitative must come into play.
Is that something you experienced through your research at university, through applied work? Where did that sort of understanding come from in your skill set? Because I know you're strong in that.
It was probably during my PhD when my statistical teacher, who was a saint, and I still talk to her, and she still sends me Christmas cards. And I wish I could work with her again, Terry Key. God bless her. She really just when I was looking at structural equation modeling in statistical class with her, and she was talking to me about variables, and we were discussing all of these things, and I said, so let me understand this straight. So when we even build models with multiple variables and SEMs that are super complex, you're still only explaining 30% of the issue. Something like this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly that, but it's a small proportion, even with, I don't know, 15 variables that are defined and like, yes, you're basically explaining anywhere from, I don't know, 15 to 30, 35% of some phenomenon. Pick one, choose X. And I went, well, what the hell's happening with the 70? What's that about? She goes, well, we would have to augment, data and triangulate and ask qualitative questions, and ding, that's where it went. So I went, oh, okay. That's when it happened, I think, because I can still remember that class.
And I remember going through my own PhD with qualitative research and thinking, books. We need books. We need resources on this. And of course, we've had an explosion of content analysis tools, and I don't mean the quantitative ones, the qualitative content analysis tools where you can see the concept maps coming out, thesaurus being generated automatically or interactively, patterns, trends. A lot of it though has to be by people doing what you said before that you commend when you see young people do, which is reading.
Yeah, totally.
It's processing qualitatively those major themes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Writing so hard. Teaching writing. And this is, in my dissertation with students, it's just writing to me tells me a lot about how you think.
Yeah.
We can go on for hours about that, but write me a sentence, anything, and I'll tell you a little bit how you think.
Oh, it's a bit scary.
It is. I mean, it depends what mood you're in, but what the objective exercise is. But so interesting.
Gisele, this has been 30 minutes already, and we will have to call you back in the next iteration of this course. I'm positive to delve into the PhD, delve into design thinking. But I just want to thank you on behalf of the whole class.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.